Hi, and welcome to the A Quilting Life podcast. I'm Chelsea from Chelsea Stratton Designs.
And I'm Sherri from A Quilting Life.
And it is Monday, August 28th, and we are happy to be here. We have a really fun podcast episode for you guys.
Yeah, this episode's going to be just a little bit different. We'll get into that in just a second. First, I will share that Cozy Earth is once again a sponsor of this episode. We are grateful to be working with Cozy Earth. We do love their products. They have bamboo from viscose, which is temperature cooling and regulating, and we love the sheets. And with fall around the corner, I know they will probably have some fun new things in store for us. They have just had a big summer sale, and as always, you can get 35% off site-wide using the code AQuiltingLife. Okay,
so you have a few things to share.
Yes. Okay, I did want to mention these great Mad for Plaid project bags that Fat Quarter Shop sent. They are just a really nice size. They have zippers at the top, and you can see through them just enough to know what project you have inside. So, yeah, we'll put a link to those. They are always coming up with new products. I feel like they've had these for a while, but these might be new colors.
Yeah. I have a couple of the colors, and I did take my bag to Beach Cities with me when we went and had some stuff in it. But my kids also use them for other things too, like books and things like that. So,
yeah. And they're breathable, which I like, so the fabric can breathe. So
I love them, and I like these new colors. They're so cute.
Yeah, fun for fall. Okay. Quilts, we thought it would be fun to share the Fat Quarter Shop Bountiful Quilt Along.
Yeah.
It was their charity Quilt Along. And I think their quilt was in Corey's fabrics, right?
Yes, Corey's sun-washed fabrics was what they had it in. And we just thought it was really cool. We both used Bountiful Blooms.
Yes.
And so fun because it was called Bountiful. So we were both really excited about it.
Yeah, and I did get mine off to be quilted, and I had Val do some really beautiful custom quilting on this one, and it's perfect for fall and perfect right now, this time of year. I feel like late summer, early fall.
Yeah. Well, I love it too because Bountiful Blooms fabrics are supposed to be shipping next month.
Right.
So this is
a little preview.
Guys. And sticking with the fall theme, you have a fall quilt on the table.
Yeah.
Harvest Road by Lela Boutique is the fabrics.
Yeah. And the pattern is Cottage Charm. It's from my Labor of Love book, and it's also available as a separate standalone PDF on Etsy. But didn't you help me piece this?
So I made this quilt at a retreat in Idaho that I went with. It was my very first quilting retreat. Mom was teaching there, and I went, and it was so fun. And I helped her do a lot of the quilts for the book she was working on.
I feel like you did all the blocks, and then I put it together.
Yeah, we would do that. I would make the blocks, and she would put it together.
Yeah, this, I actually found this. I have a quick little story. Yesterday, Billy and I were doing some filming, and we actually taped the interview that you'll be hearing today. And after that, I wanted to film a couple videos, and I needed this quilt for my video. And I could not find the quilt. And after 20 minutes of combing through quilts, I got really frustrated, and I told Billy, I'm just going to take all of the quilts out of the closets. And so after I had the closets about half emptied, of course, I found the quilt, and we were able to film the video. But then I said, you know what? I'm taking the rest of everything out of the closets. And then when we were done filming, I put them in these piles by collection. So we have 18 fabric collections.
Yeah,
so I had
a lot.
18 piles with quilts. And then I did Christmas.
Seasonal.
Yes, seasonal. Christmas, red, white, and blue, and fall. So, and then I put them all back. It took me about 6 hours. And
that just goes to show really how many quilts it was, you guys. She showed me the closets last night. My dad had taken my oldest to basketball, and I showed up to pick her up, and my mom was like, come upstairs right now. I have to show you something. And it was all its glory. Perfectly organized. It was so awesome.
Well, and the thing is now I'll be able to easily find something because...
For videos.
Right.
For podcasts.
Yes.
You know exactly where they are.
Yes. And,
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. One shelf has... each shelf has about 4 collections worth of quilts. And so now I'll be able to say, oh, well, this collection is going to be on this shelf. So that quilt is in here. And at least I'm only, if I do have to tear apart a stack, at least it's 1 shelf worth and I can easily put it back together. So really, really excited. And we will pop up a picture of that because I was pretty thrilled with. And it's been on my list to do for over a year. I've even talked to you about it.
Yeah.
And it finally had to be done.
So I have a question for clarification, though. You said 18 fabric collections.
Yeah.
And then you did 4 seasons.
Well, I really just did red, white, and blue, fall, and Christmas.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 3, but were those categories not from your patterns or your fabric collection?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Some of them are and some of them aren't. So what I did, I was able to do a whole shelf and a half with Christmas quilts that weren't ours, but then I have all of our favorite things
On top?
with those.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the same thing with fall. I actually ended up keeping the Bountiful Blooms quilts together and not with the fall. Other than the new little wall hanging that I just did, I put that with the fall. But
Okay.
yeah.
Because I'm just asking in case, because you've made Christmas themed quilts with other fabric lines.
Right.
Are those with the fabric lines they belong to, or are they in the Christmas pile?
They're in the Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm noting that in case we need to find another quilt down the road.
Yeah.
And I'm done with the Regal Pines wall hanging, so you can add
I can
that
put
in.
that. I'm going to put that in fall, actually.
Put it in fall.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, and also then I had this pile of quilts from books that and magazines that I had done. And if they were out of one fabric collection, I put them with the fabric collection, even if it had just been in a magazine. But then I have Blockheads 2, Blockheads 3, Blockheads 4, and then I had the Susan Aki sampler. So I did all the samplers together.
Oh, cool.
Those all use our fabrics, but are a variety of patterns. So I really feel like I'll be able to pull out anything I need for any type of lecture or video.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh, I love
What
it.
about the block of the month?
Block
Quilts.
of the month quilts. So if they were from multiple, if I did them scrappy, I put them with the sampler quilts. And the Seashore Drive one from 2022, that one is with the Seashore Drive quilts.
Drive. Okay.
So I did it that way. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, you have been talking about that for quite a while, so this is a long
It
time
happened,
coming.
though. You
Yeah.
did it.
I know. Billy kept saying, have you found it yet? No. And I just kept taking more quilt. Anyway, I was really glad. And I burned a lot of calories yesterday. My watch was like, whoa, keep it up. This is the best you've done in a while.
Little does it know, it has to do with quilts.
Yes.
I was helping before we were filming,
Yeah.
helping her take quilts out of the closet.
Yeah.
But then once we found it, then we stopped, we
Yeah.
filmed, and then I went off to go edit and everything, and my mom continued with that. So yeah, but she was working on it for quite a while.
Yeah. I think I
Yesterday.
finished at like 8:00 last night.
And that goes good for, I guess, who our interview is with today.
Right.
But I'll go ahead and read the email first, and I'll
Okay.
let you introduce our interview.
Okay.
So we do have just one email that there's no pictures today, but there is a new quilt behind me. So while I'm reading the email, if you can take a look at the quilt, and my mom will have that linked in the description as well. What is the name of this one?
That is Garden Stars Sampler. And I thought it was lost too, but I found it yesterday. It's in our Walkabout collection.
Oh, my goodness.
And
I thought it was lost.
I thought it was lost. It has 6 different star blocks, and it also has a mini version. So yeah, I found it. So it had to go on the wall.
So yeah, there's even a new quilt behind me. But my mom she really appreciated this email from a listener, and we wanted to share it today. So it says, "Hello, Sherri, Chelsea, and Billy. Just wanted to send an email to let you know that I sure enjoy your tutorials and have ordered many of your paper patterns. don't have a computer to download or print from. So one of the things I like most is the positive attitude from each of you. That really makes a difference. Sherri, you are always reading to better yourself and then pass what you have learned to us who may not have the extra time to read. Chelsea, I'm enjoying to see your confidence grow and adjusting things like even making orders. Billy, I'm glad to see you. Applause to the great job you're doing. Thanks for the patterns, videos, and tutorials. Hope you have a blessed time. Till next time. And that is from Wanda from Oklahoma. So thank you very much for the kind words, Wanda.
Thank you, Wanda.
Yeah, I thought that was so nice.
That's so nice.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
So with that, I think you can go ahead and introduce our guests that, like my mom mentioned, we did do the interview yesterday and had that recorded. And so that we're all together today to sort of wrap everything up. But go ahead, Mom, and tell our listeners about this great interview.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. You all know that I love organizing and planning and getting my life in order so that I have more time for quilting, right? And so anyway, she's going to do a short introduction of herself when we begin the interview, but I'll just give you a little bit of information. So I love listening to podcasts, and there is a podcast that I've been listening to for quite a while with Laura Vanderkam and Sarah Hart-Unger. And Laura is the New York Times bestselling author of Tranquility by Tuesday is her latest book. And she has a lot of books that I've read over the years, 168 Hours and different time management books. Anyway, I'm not really sure how Laura and Sarah met, but they have had this podcast, The Best of Both Worlds, for several years. And they talk about managing life as, primarily for women who have jobs and families and either work at home or work somewhere else, or whatever type of life they have. They just talk about fitting it all in and making it all work. And I've really loved their podcast and have learned a lot from it. And during the pandemic, about the same time we started this podcast, Sarah started her own podcast as well about planners, and it's called Best Laid Plans. And it's really been fun. I've listened to it from episode 1, and she talks about planners and she reviews planners, and she has interesting guests who talk about how they use planners. And she had Cal Newport as a guest. She talks about her own methods for time management and organization. And it's just so relatable because she is a physician. She's married to a physician also, and they have 3 children. And so it's just been really fun to learn about all things planning from her. And I just kind of got this idea a little while ago that it would be really fun to have her as a guest just to talk about planning for quilters. And I feel like I've done that a little bit, but she has so much more experience. And so I reached out and she said yes. And
that's so awesome.
It was a super fun conversation. I actually did an interview for her podcast also. So I think hers going to air first?
I can't remember because I couldn't hear.
Yeah, I think hers might have already aired. If it has, we'll put a link. But if not, we'll put all the ways that you can find her in the description. But yeah, it's a really fun conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, everyone, I'm super excited to be here today with Sarah Hart-Unger. I have been following Sarah's blog and listening to her podcasts. She has 2 podcasts, and she is I'm just going to let you introduce yourself. Actually, I'm a little starstruck, so we will just let you introduce yourself, and our guests will soon find out what a treat this is going to be.
Oh, you are too sweet. You should not be starstruck. I feel like I should be starstruck. So I am Sarah Hart-Unger. I I work part-time as a pediatric endocrinologist, so I'm a physician, but I've also had a blog for almost 20 years now, which has also turned into a part-time podcasting career. I am part of 2 podcasts. One is Best of Both Worlds, which I co-host with Laura Vanderkam, who's a time management expert you may have heard of. And then I have my own solo podcast called Best Laid Plans, which, kind of like Sherri stuff, got born during the pandemic when I was just looking for something, some kind of creative outlet for myself. And I've always loved planners and the process of planning. And I was like, I don't really see that there's that many planner podcasts out there. I think I'll start one. So I do a lot of planner reviews. I talk about different types of planning techniques. I answer Q&As about planning. And then I've also started running some courses related to planning, like Best Laid Plans Academy and something called Digital Detox and a few other things coming up. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I'm also a mother of 3. I am married to a physician and I live in South Florida.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I will just mention right at the beginning, I did take Sarah's Best Laid Plans Academy, and it was incredibly helpful and just really a highlight. I'm so glad I took the time to do that, and it really helped me organize not only my quilting life, but my personal life too. So really appreciate that. So as you learned just from Sarah's introduction, she is into planners. And as quilters, I know that we're always looking for ways to get more done. We have more projects than we could ever make in a lifetime. And so I thought it would be super fun to interview Sarah and get some of her perspectives on how someone can use planning to make more time for hobbies and the things that they love. And my first question, and Sarah also has hobbies too that, since I've been following along her blog, I know that she's a runner and she loves to read as well. And so I thought maybe first off, you could share how you use planning to prioritize those activities that you love to do.
Yes. Well, planning is never going to make more time. We all have the same 168 hours in a week, as Laura would point out, or maybe 4,000 weeks in our lifetime, as somebody like Oliver Berkman might say. But planning may help us make better and more informed and intentional choices with our time so that we end up using it in ways that bring us joy and make us happy. And so it sounds like hobbies are a big part of that for many of you, and they definitely are for me. And my planner does help me to prioritize these things. There's a whole slew of ways that planning can be used to enhance these things. But I think I would probably separate it out into like big picture planning, where you take some time on each of the larger time horizons, maybe every season and definitely every year, to think about what you want to do with respect to your hobbies. For me, it might be, okay, I want to train for XYZ races and I want to read these books or whatever. And for you, it might be, these are my highest priority projects. I want to make this as a gift for this person. I want to make this piece of decor for this room, or, whatever you've decided it's going to be. Because until you have an understanding of kind of like what you want to do or create in the big picture, it's hard to drill down on a smaller scale, like your week or your day, to think about what might be a priority. I also think that making really good use of what we call the someday maybe list. Now, I didn't come up with that. That is a concept that David Allen, who is a very kind of famous productivity writer from the early 2000s, came up with this concept. And that's to allow yourself to have a list of things that you're excited about, but don't belong on your plate in any immediate time horizon. Like, you're not definitely going to do them this year, not this month, whatever. And I think for crafters, that list can be an incredibly powerful thing, because if you don't separate your stuff out into things I'm actually going to do in some kind of clearly defined time frame and things that are just cool, but like, obviously I can't do everything, so I need some other parking lot, I think that list is going to be an incredibly helpful tool to allow you to keep some of these things without giving yourself the pressure to do all the things, because none of us can make 10,000 projects in a year, even if we're excited about them. So that was a lot of rambling. That's just getting me started thinking about like how hobbies and planning might intersect.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's wonderful. I feel like every quilter that I know has a list like that. And sometimes it's just in your head, but I think if you can get it to go into a notebook or on paper, it just makes it so much easier. And also it can just really inspire you when you're kind of in a creative slump. You can look at a list like that. And so I love that suggestion. And I also love your idea about looking at our quilting goals seasonally too, because I feel like so much of life depends on the seasons. And just, right now it's back to school time. And for me, that's always a time when I look at everything and think about what I want to make, what there is time to make before the end of the year. If I'm thinking about Christmas gifts or gifts for friends and other, holiday sewing. Some people do a lot of Halloween sewing. I don't really do Halloween. I do fall, but yeah, so this is just the seasonal and having the big picture list. I love that idea.
And if you're going to, sit down and actually decide, oh, these are my priorities this season, this is kind of applying the goal setting system, but specifically to crafting. That way, on a monthly basis, you can look at, okay, if I want to do that this season, what do I want to focus on this month? What are the supplies I'm going to need? And then that can drill down all the way to the week and the day, and might help with pacing. As you mentioned, gifts. I can imagine if you kind of have pressure on yourself that you want to have XYZ gift created by Christmas or by a birthday or something like that, then you kind of have to work backwards and really think about what needs to be done at different junctures in order to make this a pleasure and not a source of stress.
Right. Yes. Thank you. So I was wondering if you had any suggestions for how someone could use planning to prioritize this time. We all have busy lives, but what are some ways that we can use planning to prioritize time for these types of activities that we love?
Yeah, so that was sort of talking about the bigger scale. And I think now we kind of have to zoom in and think about the smaller scale and really understand where the hours in our week are going, and then even in the hours in our day. And I personally absolutely love doing every few so often, like a little ideal week exercise where I kind of write out, this is kind of what I'd want my week to look like. You mentioned that you had used Full Focus Planner at times, and I also love that planner. And they actually have included in that planner in particular a really nice spread for you to do that. And I think that is a great way to actually visually see the odds and ends of time where you might fit in your crafting. And it might be a helpful exercise to help you see, like, okay, well, if I want to get in 2-hour sessions during my week, then I probably need to decide not to watch Netflix on these 2 nights. Or, I don't know if you can multitask and watch Netflix and quilt at the same time, then great. I wouldn't be able to do that, I don't think, but some of you are probably up to that level. But you get what I'm saying.
Right.
Being able to actually visualize where the free pockets are going to be, and then actively deciding, putting them in your calendar so you can look forward to them and be excited about them. I think that's a huge part of it. And I personally love to look at that on a weekly basis, but then I also do a little short planning session every single morning where I kind of decide, I just look at kind of the hours of the day, what I have on my plate for the week, and I make my priorities and kind of think through my schedule. And that's when you can think through, hey, I can look forward to 7 p.m. because I'm going to get to craft for X amount of time, or maybe I want to do it during lunch, or, you can actually decide once you have those hours in front of you. I think sometimes that seems so basic, but sometimes when we're in a rush, we feel like, oh, I don't need to take the time to do that. And yet then things just get missed because you're kind of just running from one thing to the next thing. And you might be sad that you didn't get in that time that you wanted to have. So I'm always an advocate for spending a little bit of time each day, really thinking about what you want to fit in those hours.
I love that too. And I feel like that's something I didn't do for such a long time. And really, it's so helpful. Just a few minutes every morning, just looking again at the schedule. And so thank you for that. I feel like that will really help a lot of people to add that time, make that time have a purpose. So what about someone who doesn't necessarily consider themselves an organized person or a planning person? Have you dealt with helping any people like that?
Of course. I mean, I don't think that I do think planning is a learnable skill, and that would be I would pull that I would give that credit that quote to Lisa Woodruff from Organized 365, who always talks about how organization is a learnable skill, but I'd say planning is also a learnable skill. So I don't think you have to quote be an organized person to necessarily benefit from these techniques. So first, I would say anyone can start small by just thinking about maybe just your day. Maybe you don't have an annual list and you're like overwhelmed by the thought of all these lists, but you can still kind of zoom in and think about your day. And the other thing is sometimes if planning really doesn't appeal to you, then you might want to try tracking, which is sort of the opposite of planning in a way, but it's instead of sitting there and deciding. I mean, I love planning and I'm not going to give it up, but some people really prefer with something like a hobby to instead spend time on the back end once they've completed something, maybe writing it down in their calendar what they did so they can then look back and see patterns. Plus, the act of tracking can kind of be fun in and of itself. And, it can be just like a habit you do right after you do something. It doesn't require a lot of advanced thinking. You could probably do it really nicely in Sherri's planner that she has made, or any number of calendars or planners. But tracking might be kind of like a way to ease yourself into the practice of using a planner or planning without kind of doing all that looking forward type stuff that might be on a higher level.
I love that too. And then it stands as a record for you if you do that tracking and you can show I sewed this many minutes this day or this week or I made this many projects. At the end of the year, I feel like that's something I do regularly is just review how many quilts did I make, how many pillows, how many pot holders, whatever I'm sewing. So yeah, I love that because it can just be on a small daily level to help.
And sometimes it will kind of reveal patterns. Like I like to do this with my reading where I like track how many, and if I notice like, I'm kind of like stuck on this book and I've read 3 pages over the past week. Like maybe this is a book to let go because maybe I'm just not enjoying it. And I might not have noticed that if I didn't actually take the time to write it down or think about it.
Oh, I love that you brought that up too, because I feel like sometimes quilters in general have a hard time letting go of projects that they're not loving. And so I think just like with a book or a project, it's that tracking really can help you say, hey, I'm not loving this. Maybe I'm going to set it aside and that's okay and start something else from my list that I'm excited about. So
yes, I can totally see how those would kind of have parallels.
Yes. What about how does planning maybe I feel like we're answering some of these questions. They're all related, but do you have any ideas about how someone could integrate all of these things together, their personal life, their work life, their hobby life, and do you think they should have separate planners or I know you have several planners.
That's a great question. I think there's no good answer to this, like no one answer to this. I think your mileage may vary. Some people might be absolutely like appalled at the idea of having what I call a planner stack, which is I often have like 3 or 4 planners going at any one time, although it's not like I'm carrying around 3 or 4 planners. One of them might be like a 5-year journal. One of them might be more about goals and just sits on my desk, but like I have multiple planners. One thing I do tell people is that, and you know this from Best Laid Plans Academy, you should have one calendar. Like your calendar, your time, I don't care if it's digital, I don't care if it's paper, but it should all be somewhere because otherwise it's dangerous. And even if some people are like, well, I have my work calendar here, my home calendar, I'm like, well, what if they both have something at 3:00 on Tuesday? Like you have to be so careful. So with a calendar, I think you need one source of truth, but with a planner, I can absolutely see how it would be fun to have a separate kind of hobby related planner, whether that's one that you change out annually or one that you kind of keep year after year versus your personal life. And I can also see how someone might really enjoy integrating everything together. There are some great planner layouts that are almost like grids with like columns and then rows. And so like plum paper comes to mind. You could totally have a whole row where for each day there's an entire box that you devote to your crafting and you write what you did or you write what you're planning to do. I know people that use that for like meal planning or running, or they have a column for each kid or something like that. So I don't think there's a right answer. I think it's fun to experiment with different things and see what works for you.
Oh, I love so many good ideas there. Thank you. You also have turned your planning into a business. Or I feel like sort of, it kind of mirrors how my quilting, I wasn't really intending on it becoming a business. And I'm not sure if you were intending on that, but maybe you could talk about how, since it did evolve into a business, how you keep the enjoyment aspect of it or separate or combined with the business side of it.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, first, did I plan on Best Laid Plans becoming a business? Maybe. I mean, my website, my blog, I never started that as a business. I started it because a friend did it. It was like 2004. People didn't have blog businesses. It was almost like a glorified live journal. And then I was like, I love this. I love writing every single day. I have so much to say. This is so fun. I like finding my voice, etc. And I still don't really, oddly, my site has ads and everything, but I don't think of the blog as a business. But the podcasts were a little bit maybe more on the business side of things, although more just like sharing things that I'm passionate about and filling a niche that I felt like was missing. But how do I keep my enjoyment? I mean, I really enjoy it. I don't think I would do it if I didn't enjoy it. I enjoy my clinical job too. Honestly, I enjoy both my jobs. Yeah, I think podcasting is such a privilege. It's so much fun. I get to learn so much, and I still enjoy planning in its own right. Like I do some planning for myself that I don't even share because honestly, planning's a little difficult sometimes. If I'm really writing out personal stuff, I can't. Like, I'm not going to give you my passwords or something, right. You know what I mean? Like, so there are things that I will just do just for me that doesn't get shared. Although still sometimes when I'm playing with a new product, even if I'm not sharing the specific layouts, I'm learning about that product and I may share insights. No, I just feel really lucky. This is really, really fun. And I am grateful that there are people who want to listen to it and learn about planning. So yeah, I'm you'll have to tell me, like, has it been similar for you?
Yeah, very similar, I think. I still love quilting just for quilting's sake, but I really do love the business side of it, though, now, even though I didn't really intend to go down this path. But really, it all, for me, the blog started it all. So really, really grateful that I love that, too. And yeah, and I love learning from other bloggers. There are still a handful of people who started blogging in the early days and are still blogging. And I love, it's just fun, a peek into other people's worlds and very inspiring. I love learning about what other people like to read and what they like to cook or, anything. So it's been a great evolving, but also I love it all for its own sake too. So I was wondering if you could share your top 3 or 5 planning tips for people. So I feel like that, everybody's always looking for a hack or a tip, and maybe those tips might inspire some quilters to give this a try.
Yeah, I think my very top tip would be to take some time to do it every day and to actually give yourself that time and trust that it's worth the time. Because I think one of the biggest barriers is that people like assume, I don't know, that it's not going to pay off or that it's too hard or something like that. So I do think planning takes practice, but I think committing to at least a little weekly session to plan your next week, as well as a small daily section to think through your day is like the bare minimum. And then once you've mastered those things, then you can start thinking about, planning on larger scales and kind of getting into planning seasonally and yearly and perhaps monthly as well. But I would say giving yourself permission and time to do it. I would say a weekly planning session you could probably complete in an hour, depending on what you're trying to do. And a daily planning session might be 5 to 10 minutes once you've gotten used to it, but actually committing to doing it. Other tips, my calendar thing, one source of truth, like having one place where everything you're doing that's time anchored lives. I don't mean all your tasks necessarily, not the things that can fit in the cracks, but anything that is scheduled from a work thing to a doctor's appointment to a fitness class that you've signed up for that's at a certain time, that all needs to live in one place, and that calendar itself needs to be audited on some sort of regular basis so that you don't surprise yourself with different types of conflicts. I guess my third one is going to be really vague and broad one. And I think this was in Best Laid Plans Academy as well in a lot more detail, but learning how to control your inputs. So what I mean by that is like we have stuff coming at us all the time from so many different channels, from email, from WhatsApp, from various apps, from social media if we have that, like all these things. And then we don't usually systematize like when we look at them or like how we process them. But developing some kind of a system, whether it's that you check email a certain number of times per day, you leave XYZ notification on silent and look at it, at a certain time, like really thinking about how those are going to how you are going to manage them so that they are not managing you can make a huge difference on, life feeling more intentional and like you're kind of driving the bus of your day.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I should have probably mentioned it earlier too. That was really one thing that I learned from the Best Laid Plans Academy too, was the one source of truth, because I had, things on my phone and things in my email that I was using my email kind of as a storage bin for things and not just putting them right on my calendar. So that was very helpful for me too.
I thought of one more, which might appeal to those who love physical things and crafting, which is use tools that make you happy. Because life is too short to have like bad pens or an app that like only works half the time. If digital's your thing, you do digital, but find stuff that is beautiful and reliable and works well. And if paper is your thing, there are so many gorgeous planners out there. If you can't find the perfect thing, there are so many customizable planners out there. Like the tools are there. Find something that you actually have fun using in a tactile way, and then you're going to be much more likely to use it on a regular basis.
Oh, I love that. In fact, I've been thinking about making a fabric cover for my full focus planner because it's just, it's meant for the business world and it's really plain. And I thought, well, I could make a quilted cover and then I would like it better, right? So
that would be so cute. I've had that actual complaint from somebody else about full focus and this person made I think they painted it and it was really, really cool. So a fabric cover would be amazing.
Right. Oh, thank you. So let's see. Is there anything that I missed or that you think that you might want to share with our listeners or before we?
Mostly just if you're interested in hearing more planning stuff, Best Laid Plans, there's a million, well, not a million, but there's I think nearly 200 back episodes now that you can listen to. Do not expect anything good on YouTube because I don't know what I'm doing and I need people like Sherri has to make that work someday. And if anybody is interested in that kind of in-depth, how do you plan? Sherri mentioned the Best Laid Plans Academy as a 7-session live class that you can also take asynchronously if you prefer, with some specialty sessions. And I am going to be, I only do that every once in a while. I've done 2 cohorts so far. I am launching my 3rd cohort for this fall. So stay tuned. You can find details about that on my website or sign up for my newsletter to hear more about that.
Awesome. Yeah. And I should mention that too. I love your newsletter. It's once a month. And I just feel like we'll have to definitely have all of these links in our description for people to find you. But I love your newsletter because you give so much good information about planning. And I've taken your course, but it was kind of like a reminder, or just this last one that came for August was just a really great recap for me. And so your newsletters are super valuable. I think anyone would want to.
I decided that even though it's fun to share just my own life stuff, I was like, you know what? I want to make sure every newsletter has something that seems universally helpful as a tool. So I did a fall planning guide in the August one. So yes, I'm so glad you liked it.
It was awesome. So well, thank you so much. I know that lots of quilters, that is one of their number one issues, is just wanting to get more done. And I feel like you were the perfect person to come on and give them some insights as to this. I really, really appreciate having you come share.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Seriously, it's very flattering and super sweet. And I'm so happy I get to share with your audience. And I feel very lucky that I had you in my class. So thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed the interview. It was a delightful conversation. And I feel like I learned so much from her, and I learned even more. I got a few more tips while we were talking for this interview. So again, we'll have all of the ways that you can find Sarah and her podcast with Laura, and her newsletter, as we mentioned kind of at the end of the interview, is a great newsletter. So we'll have all that information in the description.
And our next podcast episode airs Monday, September 11th, and we hope to see you there. Thanks so much for stopping by.